Okay, welcome everyone. It is fabulous to be with you tonight. So thank you so much for coming to join me as we explore a little bit about self-pleasuring. So let's just drop into our bodies a little bit, drop into our hearts for a few moments. So please close your eyes. And maybe put a hand on your heart center in the middle of your chest. One hand, both hands, and take a breath in, a slow, deep breath in. And as you breathe, just have the awareness that you're breathing into your heart, that your breath is going into your heart. And as you breathe out, your breath is going out from your heart. And with each breath, your heart softens. Your heart softens and your heart relaxes. With each breath, your heart softens. And with each breath, your heart relaxes. And bring your awareness and maybe your other hand to your genitals, to your sexual center. And as you breathe in, just have the awareness that you're breathing into your heart center. And as you breathe out, your breath and your energy flowing down from your heart to your sexual center, connecting your heart, connecting your genitals, your yoni or your lingam. Breathing into your heart, breathing out to your sexual center. Be aware of that energy in your body any way that you like. Maybe it's a color, maybe it's a warmth, a tingling, maybe it's a light, and maybe simply an awareness. Breathing into your heart, breathing into your sex. And become aware of a smile in your heart, a smile in your sexual center. A gentle smile, a big smile, whatever your smile is right now. And let your breath deepen as you take in a deeper breath. And breathe out. And again, a deep breath in. And slowly breathe out. And slowly open your eyes. Beautiful. So what will be fabulous wherever you are in the world is just for a moment, put your camera on, say hi, wave, smile, and then you can go back to being anonymous again. Because so much of these past months have been such a time of disconnect for so many of us and such a time of isolation. So just for a moment, let's see your face and let's smile and let's really connect with each other just for a moment. Kieran, it's so cool to see your face. We've emailed, been around. It's the first time I've seen your face. That's fabulous. to actually see everybody. Hello, Nasipo. That's fabulous. Michael, really, really cool for everybody. That's wonderful. Thank you. So now you can go back to being as anonymous as you like. Thank you for sharing that. That's so cool. So, self-pleasuring. This workshop came about, or this webinar and everything that comes from it, came about a long time ago from looking at the difference between masturbation and self-pleasuring. And essentially, by now, most of us know how to masturbate and how to have an orgasm, whether that's easy, whether it's difficult, whether it's gentle, whether it's fabulous, whether it's mind-blowing, whether it's just because I can't sleep or because I'm bored or I'm feeling frustrated, whatever it is, we know how to do that. We know how to have an orgasm. And we generally know how to do that with our own bodies pretty well, pretty easily. After all the practice that we have had, we are generally quite good at that. And over time, I realized that there is a very big difference between masturbation and orgasm and pleasure. And I was writing something earlier today based on something that actually has come to the fore a lot lately. In discussion with quite a few men that I've been working with, the question came up as to why they actually have sex. And a lot of times it's about a performance. It's not about pleasure. It's about an orgasm. It's about an erection. It's about how long can I last? And so many things around that. And it's not about pleasure. And after some of these discussions, I spoke to some women that I work with, and I asked them the same question. And what was really interesting was how many women said, until they had actually learned about pleasure, because quite a few of the women that I spoke to have been doing this work for a while, that before that, a lot of sex was simply because they thought that they should, and they felt that they had to, and they really felt obliged to. And there was a level of performance involved, and there was a level kind of skill, but it wasn't always about pleasure. And the interesting thing is, when we have sex with ourselves, we tend to do the same thing. It's not always about pleasure. It's simply about an orgasm. Now, it's really important to understand this. There is nothing wrong with orgasms. Orgasms are fabulous. And sometimes on your own, even when they're lousy, they're still fabulous. Pleasure is actually a very different experience. And sometimes in pleasure, there is no orgasm. And sometimes there are amazing orgasms. But when we're about the goal, when it's about doing whatever it is that we have to do to get to that point, to have that orgasm, that becomes our focus. So we're not feeling the feelings, the sensations, the emotions, the energy, everything that's happening in the moment. Our focus is there on that orgasm. And we are doing whatever it is that we have to do to get to that experience, that act. And that's actually what it is. It's an act, the act of masturbation, the act of orgasm. And when we start to bring the idea of pleasure into the experience, so much changes. So I'm going to say this again, and we'll come back to it again. Orgasms are fabulous, wonderful, everything around orgasms, but there is so much more than that. And when our focus is just on the orgasm, we limit the field of possibility enormously, because the field of pleasure has limitless possibilities. So I've spent most of my adult life exploring and learning and teaching about sex and about pleasure, and more seeing that they're not always the same thing. The field of pleasure is limitless. Our bodies are limitless in terms of sensation, in terms of feeling, in terms of energy, in terms of touch, in terms of our heart, in terms of emotion. There is so much within us. And when we're focusing just on that orgasm, we take ourselves often out of that field of possibilities, out of that field of pleasure, into simply having an orgasm. So there's no judgment on any experience being better or not. There's no judgment on any experience being higher or not. It's really important that, because all of the experiences have a place in the field of pleasure. But if all that we're doing is about that orgasm, we're simply limiting our possibilities enormously. So the first thing that changes in this, or the first thing that allows us to start having a different experience, is the intention. And the intention starts to bring us into awareness, into a different level of consciousness. And this requires us to start thinking about what it is that we would actually like to experience today, tonight, whenever it is that we're going to self-pleasure. Is it about a connection with our hearts? Is it about exploring our body? Is it about experiencing our sexual energy? Is it about playing? Is it about having fun? And, you know, we tend to take sex, and we tend to take ourselves in sex very, very seriously. And sex is serious, and orgasms are serious, and the performance is serious, and everything around it is serious. And we often forget that it's about fun, and we often forget that it's one of the ways that we as adults play. And self-pleasuring can be an amazing way to play and have fun. And part of that is, how ridiculous can you allow yourself to be? How absurd can you allow yourself to be? How much are you really willing to laugh at yourself in all of this? And while we're talking about laughing, just a little digression, there's a fabulous self-pleasuring experience, even purely a masturbation experience, that's just laughing. So the whole time that you're self-pleasuring or playing with yourself or jerking off, jilling off, whatever words you want to use, and there are thousands of words if you go looking for this, can you laugh? It's kind of like a laughing meditation. You know, you start out and it's almost like a forced laugh, but after a while it builds up, and can you have the experience, an amazing experience in your body? And after a while, then it has absolutely nothing to do with sex, but you just feel so good. So the intention becomes really wonderful, and it opens so many amazing pleasure possibilities. When we start thinking about what is it that I would like to experience, what of myself would I like to experience today, tonight, whenever that's going to be? And we give ourselves so much freedom in this. We give ourselves over to the possibilities. And one of the most beautiful things is we give ourselves over to surprise. And surprise often goes with curiosity. When we are doing the same thing all the time, as many of us do, because when it comes to sex, when it comes to masturbation, we pretty much do the same thing in the same way because it works. And again, that's fabulous, but we pretty much do it in the same way because it gets us to that goal. It allows us to have the orgasm. But when we start bringing curiosity to this, that's when we start being able to explore. We start becoming open to different feelings, different sensations, different energies. And it helps us get out of that goal, because it comes with the question, how is this going to feel? What kind of experience is this? Where can this take me? What can it show me about myself? And self-pleasuring then becomes a really interesting journey of self-inquiry, of personal inquiry, of exploring ourselves and exploring the limitations and the inhibitions that we put on ourselves. So curiosity becomes such a powerful intention and part of so many intentions, because it opens us up to getting out of the pattern, out of the expectation. And that's really important, because so much of what we do in sex is the expectation rather than the experience. The expectation is, I know how this has felt before, I know what happens, so I know what's going to happen. And then I do what I do to make sure that that happens, and I simply stay in the pattern of that. And as soon as I start to become more curious, I open to amazing possibilities. And then the intention really starts to expand, because it expands into emotion, it expands into feeling, it expands into different parts of my body, different aspects of my body, different ways to use the body. And it expands into the heart. So it opens up so many connections. And beyond these experiences being much deeper for us, more fulfilling, touching more parts of us, it allows us to share that if we choose, when we choose, and the way that we choose with a partner, because we're bringing more of ourselves, we're bringing more of our bodies, more of our hearts, more of our energy, more of our sensation. It also helps us understand that we are sexual and sensual beings in our own right, regardless of whether we're in a relationship or not, regardless of whether we're having sex with someone, others, lots, whatever it is. And we are sexual beings, and our sexuality is flowing and our sexual energy is flowing in our own right. And it's not about someone else. Because so often we are a sexual being only when we're having sex, when we're in a relationship. But our sexuality and our sensuality is about us. It's not about anybody else. It's something that we choose to share in whatever way we choose to do that, but it's about us. And self-pleasuring allows us to understand that, and allows us to really enjoy and experience and explore the fullness of our sensuality and our sexuality. So I've been using the word sensuality, and that's really important when we start talking about self-pleasuring, because there is so much pleasure in sensuality. So let's look quickly at the difference then between sex and sensuality. So I've come to define sex as a goal-oriented genital activity. And the goal of sex is orgasm, and that's what we've spoken about. Sensuality is very different. Firstly, it involves all of our senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and our feelings, sensation, intuition, inspiration. All of those aspects are part of our senses. It also involves our whole bodies, from the top of our head to the tips of our toes and the tips of our fingers. So it's a much bigger experience. And the bigger experience is often where the pleasure is. It's not excluding our genitals. and it's not excluding orgasm. It simply is saying that there is a whole lot more. And in the opening to sensuality, that's where we find so much pleasure. So here's a wonderful way to experience your sensuality. Just pick up whatever it is that you're drinking, whatever that might be, whether it's wine, water, juice, tea, coffee, whatever it is that you've got. Just pick that up. And firstly, in the glass or in the cup, even if it's a piece of chocolate you got next to you, it doesn't matter what it is. Just pick it up. And firstly, just look at whatever it is. Look at the color. Doesn't matter if it's water, it's tea, just look at the color. And then really take a moment, close your eyes and inhale the smell. And just breathe the smell of whatever that is into you. Licorice and mint tea. And as I inhale it, I really get that amazing smell of licorice. And take a sip, but hold that in your mouth. So I have to swallow because I can't talk with my mouth full, but hold it in your mouth. And just feel the temperature. Feel the texture. And maybe just move it around your mouth a little bit, swish it around your mouth a little bit, and just feel how it feels in different parts of your mouth. And then swallow that. And as you swallow it, be aware of it going down into your body. Now, all that took a couple of minutes. It wasn't really long. But it changes the way that we experience something, and it makes it so much more sensual. So a beautiful part of self-pleasuring are the things that we do every day in life. The first sip of coffee in the morning, the first mouthful of breakfast, feeling the water on your body when you shower. When you step outside the door, just really looking at whatever it is that's around you, it doesn't matter what it is. Feeling the air, whether it's cool, whether it's warm, when it's raining, whether it's windy, feeling that on your face. And as we do that, we become much more sensual. And the more aware of our sensuality we become, the more sensual we become. And the more sensual we become, the more aware of our sensuality we become, the more aware of our bodies we become in so many ways. And it really brings an amazing element of pleasure to us, because we really get to savor the taste, the smell, the feeling, the sound of something, of absolutely everything. And as soon as we do that, we really are allowing ourselves to go deeper into that idea of pleasure. So it becomes a really powerful way to start self-pleasure. And one of the things that it does is it slows us down. And this is so important because when everything that we're doing is about this orgasm and about getting there, we generally want to do that as quickly as we can. That's where we want to go. That's what we want to make happen. That's what we want to achieve. And we do that generally hard and fast and as quickly as we can. And that gets us there. The quicker that we do things, the less we actually feel. So when we slow down, we actually start to feel more. So here's one of the practices that I teach that's very much about starting to connect more with your body and the pleasure of your body in a really slow way. So bring your hands up like this and let your fingers and your palms touch. Now you need soft hands for this, so take a breath in. And as you breathe out, let your fingers and your palms just relax and soften so that they're really, really soft. And then very slowly, very gently, begin to caress your hand. Really slowly, stroking your fingers and your palm. Stroking the back of your hand, back of your fingers. So the slower that you move, the more you'll feel. The sides of your fingers, between your fingers. And then close your eyes. Put your hands on either side of your face. Take a breath in. And breathe out. And really slowly, really gently begin to touch your forehead and your eyes. Your cheeks, your nose, your mouth, your chin. Really slowly, really gently. And then sit for a moment and just be aware of what you're feeling, what the sensations in your body are, what the feelings are. Feel more connected to yourself, quieter, more aware of your body. Maybe something's tingling, something's a bit more awake. And you can extend that practice into the whole of your body. Absolutely everywhere on your body. And it becomes a beautiful expression of pleasure, of intimacy with yourself, almost of making love with yourself. And that's one of the important elements that differs masturbation and orgasm from pleasure is intimacy. So when it's just about the orgasm, there's not a lot of intimacy in that. It's kind of really functional. But in pleasure, there is intimacy. And the interesting thing is that intimacy is what we long for. Intimacy is what we yearn for. The greatest fulfillment is in intimacy. Sex will come and go. Orgasms will come and go. Intimacy is something that can always, always be present. And intimacy is what touches our hearts. Intimacy brings us into that deep fulfillment and that deep connection with ourselves. And that's a really powerful element of pleasure, is intimacy. So take a breath in, a slow, deep breath in. And just breathe out for a second. And just take a moment and be aware of how you're feeling now, right now, of what's in your body, of the sensations, of the awareness of what's arising in your mind, what's arising in your thoughts. So at the beginning of this, we did a practice of the heart breath, which was really simply putting a hand on your heart center and breathing in and out of your heart. And that is an amazing practice to do while self-pleasuring, even while masturbating. Keep your focus on your heart and keep your breath in and out of your heart. And as you're doing that, you're keeping your genitals, you're keeping your awareness connected to your heart. And it deepens the experience of your sexual energy. It allows you to be more in your body, to be more present, and starts to give you a different experience of self-pleasuring. Which brings up something quite interesting, which is the role of fantasy in all of this. Because for so many of us, self-pleasuring, masturbation, and sex is fueled by fantasy. It often happens more in the mind than it does in our bodies. And there's some kind of mental stimulation, visual stimulation, physical stimulation, something that we need to keep our minds aroused and our minds busy. Over time, when we explore self-pleasuring more, and when we're more present in our bodies, we actually rely on fantasy a whole lot less. So there's two sides to this. The first is that our fantasies are a wonderful thing to explore. They are really exciting. It's a place we can go to that is often far beyond what we go to in the expression of life. And it gives us an amazing journey into so many arousing, exciting, erotic possibilities. The other side of that is that very often without the fantasy, we actually don't get aroused. So the more that we're in our bodies, the more we learn to be aroused and to allow and experience our sensuality and our sexual energy without the fantasy. And that becomes a choice. That's a really interesting part of the journey. And just to digress a little bit, as you go deeper into exploring yourself, into learning about yourself, and deeper into spiritual practice, you find that your fantasies change over time, because there's a trigger in a fantasy. There's something in that we need to arouse us. And very often, as we kind of move through different emotions, as we clear certain patterns in our lives, those triggers are not there anymore. And that allows us to explore other aspects of ourselves, to start looking at what it is that really does arouse us, what really interests us, what really excites us. Not what we think should, and not necessarily what we've been patterned and conditioned to. So that becomes very interesting if you're going to explore some kind of erotica in any way. Look at it and ask, what about this really turns me on? What about this really arouses me? If it's an image, what is it that really, really draws me? And it takes you on this beautiful journey into yourself, into your inner world. And that really allows for an amazing exploration of your mind, of what is it that's really there, and becomes really interesting. And it awakens curiosity. And it really starts getting us interested in something. Not just because this is what I've always done and this is the kind of porn that always gets me there, but what is it that actually I really do enjoy? And that really starts to give us something very, very different. And again, opens up new worlds of possibility and takes us deeper into pleasure, not just that goal. And that becomes quite a big one. Okay. So we talked about the heart breath, and we've talked about heart breath during self-pleasuring. And we talked about this practice, by the way, it's called sensual hands dancing. And we spoke about laughing during self-pleasuring and during masturbation. And you can expand that a little bit, because generally we're lying or we're sitting. What about standing up and self-pleasuring? And what about dancing and self-pleasuring? And what about self-pleasuring while you're doing yoga, or self-pleasuring while you are doing sit-ups and all sorts of things? And it starts to give you such a different experience of your body and of your energy. And what about a self-pleasuring experience with a mirror? So two things you can do with the mirror. The first is look into your own eyes, the entire experience. Don't close your eyes, look into your own eyes. It's incredibly intimate. It's an incredibly beautiful and powerful experience. And do the same thing with the mirror and keep your gaze focused on your genitals during the experience. And that becomes an amazing way over time to really fall in love with your genitals, with your sexual centers, with how absolutely beautiful they are in all of different phases of arousal. So it's not always about learning to masturbate better. And there are practices of that. There's absolutely no doubt. And one of the things that I've done is I've created a new course of 6 practices that are about exploring and experiencing sexual energy more, how to have more orgasms, and also going deeper into some of these practices. So all of that's going to go out on my Facebook and email in the next couple of days. But it's not always about that. It's about allowing ourselves to shift a perspective, to say, to change the experience, let me change the way that I'm looking at it. Let me change the way that I see myself in the experience, and open to a field of different possibilities. And when we do that, we connect more with ourselves, we're connecting more with our bodies, we're more present in our bodies. And in our bodies is this amazing wisdom, this amazing energy that knows how to flow naturally. And when we learn some more things, we just add to that and we give that energy different channels to flow in. And that allows us to have really different experience. And that's what we are sharing tonight